The Athletic.
Hello, this is the Race F1 briefing for Sunday the 28th of July 2024 and I'm your host Jonny Reynolds. Coming up on today's episode, I'll be recapping an absorbing Belgian Grand Prix that even managed to produce drama after the checkered flag. So let's not waste any more time giving it the big build-up and let's get stuck into the details. After Saturday's rain, it was blue skies all the way for Sunday's race at Spa-Francorchamps, and against all expectations, it was Mercedes who came to the fore, taking a shock 1-2 with George Russell turning the tables on teammate Lewis Hamilton via a sensationally ambitious one-stopper. But Russell's joy at an improbable victory from P6 on the grid was to be short-lived, as he was dramatically disqualified following technical checks after the race, when his car was found to be 1.5 kilograms underweight by scrutineers. We'll bring you more on what exactly happened along with Mercedes' response shortly, but the upshot was that Lewis Hamilton, who'd run a more conventional two-stop strategy to finish right behind Russell at the flag, was promoted to P1 for his second victory in 3 races. McLaren's Oscar Piastri was promoted from P3 to P2, and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc jumped from a podium-missing P4 to 3rd place, though he did miss all the champagne celebrations. So let's dig a bit deeper into the race, because few expected Mercedes to have an edge on Sunday given McLaren and Red Bull were predicted to battle for victory. Even though Max Verstappen was starting down in 11th place, the Mercedes drivers expected Verstappen to come through quickly in the race. So too the McLaren pair, who were expected to be far stronger in the race than the 4th and 5th places on the grid they took in qualifying. But that didn't transpire on Sunday, with 3rd place starter Hamilton moving into 2nd place ahead of Sergio Perez at the first corner and slotting in behind pole sitter Leclerc. And Hamilton soon had his 2025 Ferrari teammate in his sights, passing him before the braking zone into Le Combe on lap 3 of 44. Hamilton didn't exactly waltz away from Leclerc thereafter, but he kept a healthy couple of seconds buffer out front. That kept him out of an immediate undercut threat, but in the end, teammate Russell proved to be his biggest foil. Russell ran an unconventional but highly effective one-stop strategy that boosted him from fighting for 4th and 5th into leading most of the second half of the race. Two-stopping Hamilton chipped away at Russell's leading advantage after his second pit stop and caught his teammate with 4 laps to go, but he just couldn't find a way through. Piastri caught both Mercedes drivers by the end of the race, but had lost too much time earlier in the race, stuck behind the likes of Leclerc, and lost 2 seconds with the slow pit stop that wasn't helped by Piastri overshooting his mark slightly. His pace in clear air had looked better than any other driver on the day, but he had to settle for 3rd place on the road ahead of Leclerc, who kept both Verstappen and Lando Norris at bay. Norris had a scrappy run to 6th place, later upgraded to 5th, which included an opening lap brush with the gravel on the exit of Turn 1, having just been passed by Piastri. Carlos Sainz passed Perez with 6 laps to go into Le Combe to take 7th place, which later became 6th, while Perez made a late pit stop for softs to claim the fastest lap bonus point, which he did to draw a close to a potentially career-defining weekend for the Mexican, with his Red Bull future still in doubt. Fernando Alonso took 9th on the road for Aston Martin, which became 8th, ahead of Esteban Ocon, who had looked to have beaten Daniel Ricciardo to the final point, only for the Australian to be upgraded to 10th. Zhou Guanyu was the only retirement of the race, having briefly survived a power loss that left him crawling around the track on lap 3. Zhou later had to retire his Sauber with a suspected hydraulic problem.
The Race F1 briefing.
So how did Russell's car come to be disqualified and in doing so rob the Briton of what would have been his second win of the season? As detailed by the FIA technical delegate, Russell's Mercedes was initially weighed in at 798 kilograms, which is exactly the weight limit. However, it is the weight limit for the car without fuel on board, and after a requisite 2.8 litres of fuel were extracted from the car for the required post-race checks for compliance, the W15 subsequently weighed in at 796.5 kilograms, which is considerably below the weight limit. Russell's car was therefore declared in breach of Article 4.1 of the technical regulations. The finding was forwarded to the stewards, who subsequently disqualified Russell from the race result, which is the standard penalty for such an infringement. The stewards said in their decision that Mercedes had confirmed the measurements were correct, while also acknowledging, quote, that there were no mitigating circumstances and that it was a genuine error by the team. Speaking before Russell's disqualification had been announced, team principal Toto Wolff said Mercedes would have to take such an outcome, quote, on the chin. He added, but there's no excuse. If the stewards deem it to be a breach of the regulations, then it is what it is. We have to learn from that. Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin said later that the team don't yet understand why the car was underweight, but will launch a thorough investigation to find the explanation. He added that Mercedes expect that the loss of rubber from Russell's tyres, given his one-stop strategy, was a contributing factor, but said that the team wouldn't be making any excuses and need to make sure it doesn't happen again. Wolff said that despite the DQ and loss of a precious one too, the team could still take a positive from the race, in that Mercedes had two cars on different strategies that were the benchmark in the Grand Prix. And as Wolff said himself, who would have said that a few months ago? Posting on Instagram hours after the race, Russell described the disqualification as heartbreaking, but added, quote, we left it all on the track today and I can take pride in crossing the line first. So after all of the drama, F1 now heads into the traditional mid-season summer break, and it does so with Max Verstappen, who finished 5th on the road in Spa before being promoted to 4th, a commanding 78 points clear at the top of the drivers' standings. But after the Belgian Grand Prix, the Dutchman was quick to concede that Red Bull's days of utter dominance are, quote, behind us unfortunately. As mentioned earlier, after his utter dominance in qualifying, which saw him take P1 before engine penalties demoted him to 11th on the grid, many expected Verstappen to sigh through the field and challenge for victory. But in the event, that never happened, with Verstappen making good early progress, but then struggling to make his way past the quicker runners. Verstappen said, the race itself was not too bad, it was just very difficult to pass. He added, the first stint I stayed out of trouble the first few laps, got into that DRS train and then basically just stayed there. Then we tried to do a nice undercut which I think worked well, but the cars are all very similar in pace and then it's just very difficult to move up. He concluded, I think from P11 we did a good job, but with our pace the last few races, it's not realistic to think we can go P11 all the way to the front again. Those days are behind unfortunately. It's the first time since 2020 that Verstappen has gone as many as 4 races without tasting victory, but as the Dutchman noted, he could at least take solace from the fact that his rivals are sharing points and victories around. Nevertheless, Verstappen notes that Red Bull have serious work to do if they're to return to the top step of the podium at his home race in Zandvoort, which is of course coming up next. And the Dutch Grand Prix is when we'll return with the Race F1 briefing. Thanks for your company this weekend. I really hope that if you missed the race or any of the other day's action, we've been able to bring you up to speed on the pertinent information. And don't forget, if you're missing F1 over the summer break, why not join the Race Members Club on Patreon? We've got loads of bonus podcasts planned and you can hear them all. Just head to patreon.com/therace to find out more and sign up. Until the next race, goodbye.
The Athletic.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THEATHLETIC, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code THEATHLETIC. Make your first deposit of at least $10, place your first bet on any game, and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.